Hey, we're here with Dan Patrick. Last week we were talking about you working with Bigfoot. Well, you helped design one of the race trucks and stuff. Tell us a little bit about that, and then you went on your own.
Well, when I was at Bigfoot from April of 89 to 92, we built Bigfoot 8, Bigfoot 9, Bigfoot 10. 10 was the last complete truck that I did there. Along with the other guys there. I didn't do everything there. And then when I came back, I had to build chassis, I think it was 11, and I'm not real sure now the numbers all. But when I came back, I started building for others, and then of course, traveling. We still had the Keystone thing at the time, the beer deal at the time, and so we were doing that. And so when we come back, I had 2 chassis to build for Bigfoot, and then we went into the Jamboree, the spring Jamboree in Columbus, the only time they were in Columbus, Ohio, and Donnie Vanloo had just built a new truck, Magnum Force, and there were a lot of issues. He and his buddies put it together, and there was a lot of issues. They wouldn't let him run it there, and I kind of got thrown under the bus. Jack Wildman and Bob Chandler asked me to come and look at it and give my opinion of it. They just didn't want to do it, and the only thing that kind of got me off the hook, they built the whole thing out of just mild steel tubing, seam tubing. At that time with MTRA, it had to be a minimum of DOM. And his 4-link bars were all parallel. You could go up and move the chassis back and forth, a lot. So actually out of the deal, Don brought me his truck, and we redid we built a new chassis under it. So that was the first one. Okay. And when he brought it there was a front motor deal, and your feet were all spread apart. You literally couldn't drive it. Andy Brass was there picking up a chassis that I did. It took both of us to drive it across the shop. The brake pedals were above your head. And so it was quite a challenge. And he said, "Don't you tell anybody that we did this." So it took 2 of us to drive it 50 feet.
Wow.
And so that was the first one. Then we started, then they started coming in.
Yeah.
And we did that year. We did in the fall. We did one for Alan Pezo. Was the one with the 4-link suspension that came from the front, like the one Barefoot truck. Did that one. We did a chassis for almost a turnkey truck for Dale Wilson, the first one, and then trying to think, there was another one in there, and I'd have to go back to look. The last one we just did that we're building for ourselves was 130, and so they all.
Okay.
Some of them kind
of. Well, and you've kind of took it to more of a standardized industry. That's what a lot of our discussions with other past guys that we've done videos with. We've talked about how every truck was very unique. It was the creation of whoever's mind was building it. And you've kind of took it to the next level. You've standardized things and made it a little bit easier for a guy to get into the industry.
Well, Gary Davis, that works for, he's been with me for a long time, he mentioned that, and I didn't even think about that. It wasn't by design, and a lot of things aren't by design. But at the time, when I built my truck, I didn't build my first suspension truck until 94, or 93, 94. I spent about 8 months, 6 to 8 months building my truck. I didn't have AutoCAD, I didn't have all that stuff. We had crayons and Sharpies and strings and wood, and we laid everything out. And if it didn't look right, we'd come back, and we had all kinds of really crude stuff. But so we went with the wider cradle, and that kind of came from when Jerry Richmond did the Overkill, one of the Overkill trucks. I like that because at Bigfoot we had so much trouble through the development of 4-link bars. And we were just bending those things up left and right. They were 65 inches long, and I thought, if we only got 20 inches of travel, why do we have a 6-foot bar? And so that's when I came down to, I put 27 inches between the Heims, and then we went with 52-inch 4-link bars, and they come out at 57. So that's kind of where that was. and nobody was building anything. And like you said, you know, we go home, you know, everybody built their own thing. You know, there was nothing to go by. And so, you know, our stuff was the only thing that was really kind of out there. We really weren't competing with anything. Pablo hadn't really come, he wasn't really there yet. And so, you know, he was just building his own stuff. And then, so, I mean, we had a lot of demand for it, but it was just me.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just me. If I wasn't traveling, I was building. So that was the whole thing, you know. And so it just really, the standardization really came mainstream is when I started building trucks for U.S. Hot Rod.
So tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, it was in the fall of '99. Brian Welch approached me about building some like 48-inch trucks. You know, we were talking, you know, that's always been back and forth over the years. And then, so we put together a thing for that, and then he calls and says, well, we want to do big trucks. I said, okay, so we just rolled into that. So they gave me a contract to build 4 complete trucks. I didn't have any staffing, you know, and it was a big opportunity. And they go, here was the deal. They want every truck the same, all the parts to interchange. Any driver can go from one truck to another. And that's how it started.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's like anything else, when you deal with a corporation, things keep changing. So it ended up being 2 trucks were smaller cages, so that's when we come up with the car cage and all that. So so I was mass producing at the time, making fixtures, and you know, so I could do that. So that took a little bit of time. I hired a couple guys, and it worked out okay. We didn't meet our deadline like we needed to because there was too many outside people involved.
Well, you know, and I've got a little backstory on this. It's funny because we were up in Canada. I can't remember, but it was when they first brought out the buses, and you and me were there. And one of the big shots, and I'm not going to say no names because they'll get upset, but we were standing out there looking at the track. I remember, and we're both looking at this bus with this ramp on it, and we're both kind of, and someone came up from the corporation and says, you guys going to do that? And I remember your comment to him was, you know, I'm really behind on the trucks I'm building for you guys. Do you really want me to wad my truck up today and put me farther behind? And they go, you stay off of that.
Yeah. Well, that was the thing is, and that's kind of the thing, it was like it was mentioned the other day, why I'm not one of the great freestylers is because there was too many people relying on me to be back in the shop on Monday to get their stuff done, so they could go wad their stuff up the next weekend.
Exactly.
And so, but you know, racing was always my thing, and it still is our main focus in our program. So, but yeah, I says, if you want your stuff next week,
Yeah.
I can't do that.
I remember that because I laughed so hard. I thought, that is perfect.
And then they started booking me to where they made sure I was home on Saturday night or Sunday nights.
Yep,
you know? And so, yeah. So that kind of changed the freestyle thing with me. And of course, again, I wasn't excited about doing that anyway.
No, I don't think any of us was when we first seen some of that stuff.
And so, actually, you know, you're talking about standardization and like that. My parts, and I'm flattered in one way and I aggravated in another way. My parts are the most duplicated parts in the world.
Yep.
You know,
Yeah.
I mean, there's guys on the West Coast that, you know, if they're somewhere where one of my trucks sitting there for a week, they're measuring it, they're
Yep.
doing it.
Yeah.
And I have conversations at the PRI show with each other, or each year with friends of mine from other forms of racing that build parts. And our conversations, what'd you design this year and how many people knocked it off?
Yep.
And so, so there's that. You know?
Well, and it's funny because years ago, one of our friends hit me up, and it was right when you were getting started, and he said, Jeff, you should be building parts. He goes, it's going to be unbelievable. And I says, you know what? I said, monster trucks will never be in a position like other forms of racing. Nobody will ever be buying mass-produced parts. I said, there ain't no money in it. I can't afford to build parts and never get paid for them. And then, you know, now I look back and go, wow, I was wrong, because you've built a lot of parts.
Well,
for a lot
don't
of
forget the
things.
part of never getting paid for
Well.
it, because it's like any other business. It's like, you know, can you give me this? I go, yeah, you pay me for the last one and I'll get you this one. But we have very, very little of that.
Yeah.
But you know, the thing is, our customer base has changed. You know, back when we started and stuff, you could go out and run the roads and make a living and stuff. And you can't do that now.
Well, and nobody could borrow money back then either. And
Well,
now
now
there's a lot more access to money for guys starting
It's
up.
because it's an industry now.
Yeah.
It's an industry now, and people know it's mainstream, corporate. You know, you look, Rick Swanson has the Obsession Truck. He does more TV commercials than most. I mean, he's constantly busy with that. So of course he's in the LA area, and that's where they're all at.
Yeah.
You know, and there's not that many trucks there. So if you come to my shop, you'll see a lot of posters and stuff of corporate advertising that utilize monster trucks. You see it in movies and stuff now. So it's mainstream, and so that's a great thing.
Oh yeah, it's really took it to another level. Well, hopefully you guys are enjoying this. Next episode, we'll talk to Dan about what's kind of going on right now in Patrick Enterprises. Hit that like button, subscribe. We'll see you next week.